So first we got Black Christmas, then we got Halloween, then we got Friday the 13th, and the holiday themed slasher was just the thing to be. And we got all sorts of different holidays, and finally we got Thanksgiving,
Yes.
but there was still another holiday that had not been done yet.
Yeah.
Founders Day. Genius. Genius.
Founders Day.
Okay, so we saw this in a theater somehow. Yeah. So this is, man, it's tough. Like it's like, okay, I guess we can give a synopsis sort of. Honestly, I don't care. This movie is just terrible. And I don't think there's a lot that needs to be said other than I don't recommend it. And
No.
we'll definitely talk about it more. I want to hear your thoughts. We talked about it with my friend. I saw with our buddy Tony, and we talked about it for me 15, 20 minutes after, and we were just laughing and just blown away
by how
bad we actually thought this film was.
Yeah. I mean, okay, I guess like overall reasons why I think it's bad. I felt that it was very confusing. I think that the motivations behind the killing and everything, there's a lot going on, and it's kind of too much, and it's hard to like focus in on what like the strongest motivation would be. So I think that's probably number one, is that I was really confused, and the second half of the film just kind of felt like more things were happening like by the minute, to be like, and then this happened, and then there's this going on, and then this person is doing this thing, and I didn't like that. I also actually, one of the big things is that I really hated the sound design.
Yeah, I did too.
Some of the music, it's not really the songs themselves. Like the songs are fine, but I felt like they were too loud, and they were like kind of.
That might be the theater's fault.
It might have been the theater's fault, but then besides the music part, there's also like some stingers that are just, I felt very inappropriate. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing. I also feel like this movie is trying to like present a message. Yeah. And that kind of goes back to my first point, where I'm really confused what the message is. I don't think it's a strong message, and I don't think it's really, I don't think it makes sense. I don't think that it lands well.
Yeah.
Mostly because like, this movie, it as you can probably guess, like Founders Day, like it kind of does have to do with politics, but it's very like on the side, like on the edge of politics. Like it doesn't talk about, like there's no details or like specifics. It's just kind of very vague about it all. And I think that it would have been better suited if it went like more in with those specifics, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's making sense, what I'm trying to say.
So you've got two political rivals in this movie that are going head to head for the mayoral duties within town. And that's a focal point of the story, the message, the overarching plot line, arcs, whatever.
Yeah.
And everything in the film feels super underdeveloped. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of shocking because the movie's still 15 minutes too long at least. So, like Kaylee said, it definitely has mixed messaging, but in addition to that, it has mixed tones, which is probably, and if you've watched my channel long enough, that's one of my major gripes typically. Like, we're pretty fair. We're pretty open to a lot of different films. So I always try to be pretty open about everything. And with this one, the movie is uber melodramatic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They go for a very serious tone. Mm-hmm. But then the film also tries to embrace the campiness of its roots. Mm-hmm. Right? So this is a slasher. And the director, I'm sure, is a slasher fan, so he made a slasher. And so there's these really out of place moments where they may have fit in a film that has that kind of tone to it. Okay, if you to take the movie Thanksgiving, which is
Mm.
a perfect film to compare to because they're both they're both holiday slashers. They came around the same time. They're only a few months apart from each other in release, and they both kind of try to emulate Scream, albeit Thanksgiving, of course, goes harder than
Yeah.
Scream ever would. So it
It does go
embraces
hard.
the gory side of the 80s while still having the more good looking, pristine looking film, pristine looking characters, and killer and their motivations feel a little bit more like the killer and the motivations feel a little more 80s in Thanksgiving, but the
Yeah.
characters and the look of the film and the way it's shot feels more like in the more modern vein of like
Mm.
how the 90s made everything a little bit more glossy with how the actors were better looking and the film stock was better looking. So we can compare them because this one definitely has that Scream vibe to it, especially in the end when it goes absolutely ludicrous with its reveals.
Yeah.
Um, but it's the tone. So like in Thanksgiving, Eli Roth balances the serious and the silly very well.
Mm.
He's masterful at it in Thanksgiving. When the film needs to be serious, it never takes itself so serious that you're like feeling a totally different tone for then when we transition into those kind of playful moments. Because what makes Thanksgiving funny is the bombastic moments that
Mm.
are so out of left field for anybody. So like there's the realism and then there's the over the top that's supposed to be funny. And he does a really great job of balancing that.
Yeah.
This doesn't have that. This
No.
goes like soap opera up to like a parody movie because some of the lines and the delivery of them legitimately feel like they're out of something like Scary Movie, right? So
Yeah,
where it
they
feels
do.
like it's camp for camp's sake. It's like a B movie, but a B movie that's aware that it's a B movie, like one of
Yeah.
those modern movies that's like I'm aware that I'm like the older movies that suck, but since I'm aware of it, it's cool.
Well, one of the
And
things
it's like that never works.
that we were talking to, and I think that like Tony and all three of us like agreed on, is just that if it was going to go for camp, it should have like gone full on for camp. But because the tone is so like kind of mixed, like a mixed bag,
Yeah.
there's that camping factor, but then as you said, like there's the soap opera, but then there's also like a seriousness to it as well in certain scenes,
Yeah.
and it's just blended really oddly. The humor too that's in there is possible. I don't know. It like
I don't
I
know if
couldn't
it's supposed
decide
to
if
be.
it was intentional or
I
not
think
intentional.
so.
I
Yeah.
think there are some things that are definitely intentional, but then there's other things that are just kind of like funny because of, as you said, like delivery or whatever.
What time it is?
And yeah, I don't know.
So yeah, I mean, the movie is also extremely confusing in multiple moments when it comes to like character decisions or geography or like motive like how characters respond and react, all those
Yeah.
kinds of things. And the ending, you just kind of scratch your head because they never really truly set up anyone's motivations very well. Or, like, as I said, we were talking about this. This is like political satire where you have these two opposing sides of the political spectrum and they're both fighting over who's going to take over the reins of the town, and that's so central to the plot,
Yeah.
especially in the end. But we never understand the differences between the two characters,
Yeah.
right? You have the you have the current you have the current mayor, and you have the person who wants to be mayor, and we deal with their kids, of course. But like this character is supposed to be bad for the town, and this character is trying to like take over to make things better. But they never talk about why she's bad for the town. They
Yeah.
never talk about why he's good for the town. there is a moment sort of where we kind of find out why she's bad for the town, but they don't talk about it enough. And then there's
Definitely not
so
enough.
many moments that I literally out loud in the theater was like, what? And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wait, what? And I like turned to both of them and was like, why did that person just do this?
Right.
Right? There was barely anyone in the theater, so I wasn't really being a dick. But I literally just genuinely couldn't figure it out in the moment. Like, why would this character do this in this moment? It literally
Yeah.
doesn't make absolutely any sense. And it doesn't blend well with where we went in the
Right.
story. Right. So there's just so many moments like that. The line delivery is poor. The writing is horrendous. The kills are absolutely non existent, terrible. Almost all of them are off screen, and what you do get on screen is laughable. The killer reveal is so obvious, but then isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And what isn't doesn't really make all that much sense. It kind of does, but doesn't, because it doesn't set itself up well. If this movie doesn't make my top 5 worst of the year, then 2024 is going to be the worst year for horror ever. If I see 5 worse movies than this year,
Yeah,
I
I hope
am going to
not.
be
I really hope
absolutely
not.
devastated. I'm going to call right now that this, I hope to God that this is the worst movie of the year. I do believe it will be, because this is genuinely terrible to me.
It's a
Like,
stinker.
it's definitely
It's a
it's one
stinker.
of the worst movies I've ever seen in theaters. And Tony and I agreed on this, and I'm kind of shocked to even say this out loud. But we saw Black Christmas together, the 2019 version, and we both walked out and we laughed about it because we were like, dude, why do we see the worst slashers based on holidays in theaters together? And then we both kind of looked at each other and we're like, I can't believe this, but I actually think Black Christmas is better.
I don't
Which
know.
is
I don't have a.
insane, because that's like one of my least favorite movies I've ever watched in
I haven't
theaters.
seen it, so I can't compare it to that. But the closest thing I was comparing it to was the "It's a Wonderful Knife" from last year, which I also thought was really terrible. But I do think that this movie is worse than that one.
Agreed.
So, it's not a recommendation. I know people are probably gonna be like, oh, I want to see this, like, and see how bad it is. So it's like, if that's what you want to do, go for it. But just, we warned you that it's bad. So
And
make your own
they
decision.
put this in the big theater.
Yeah, it was in like the one that we saw Godzilla -1 in.
This is where they
It
put
was in
like
a really large
the
theater.
Marvel movies and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
we saw, when I say the big theater, I mean like not the actual like theater itself, but like the big screen
Right.
within the theater. I was shocked when I was heading towards the small screens, and you guys actually had to come and get me,
Yeah, yeah.
because
Because you're like,
they
where
were
are you
like, no,
going?
it's over here, and I was
Yeah.
like, it couldn't be over there. That's like basically IMAX.
It
And I
was
was
in
like, why the
fact.
fuck is in this?
It wasn't in IMAX, but
No, it
was
wasn't,
in
but it was the biggest
the next
screen they
biggest
have.
one.
And I was like, I don't, what? Why would
Yeah.
they put it in here? And there was us
And like,
and 2 people next to us and 2 people below us.
yeah, there's like
And there was
4 other
probably
people.
400 seats open.
So weird.
And there should have been 7 more, because no one should have been there. Terrible film. Absolutely one of the worst slashers I've seen in theaters ever, if not the worst slasher I've ever seen in theaters. Just, I can't believe this made it to theaters. I genuinely can't believe this went to theaters.
Yeah.
So, sorry guys if you worked on
We
it
didn't
or
like
whatever.
it.
This is not for us. But hopefully you guys loved it, because somebody in the Metacritic score, an
Yeah.
actual like legit critic, gave this 100, a 100, a masterpiece score.
They loved it.
A 100. That's fine.
Or
That's fine. I'm not here to say my opinion's better than yours or whatever, but 100 for this film is like,
kind of insane.
I could never take you seriously ever again. And yes, I know the irony of somebody sitting here with a Halloween Ends shirt on talking about a bad slasher.
Right.
I love this movie, and I'm okay
if you
with giving that a high score.
Founders Day, we're glad that it works for you. We don't like it. That's really it. That's just our opinion. But
yeah, we got to go to an interview, guys.
bye.
Bye.